Mike Butcher from TechCrunch once more, again at the wonderful Tech Open Air Berlin. Please give it up for Avid Larizadeh, Duggan.
Thank you.
From Kobalt Music. Now, do you know, it's a really wonderful and fascinating time to be discussing music at this point, because obviously breaking news just happened with the news that Taylor Swift, turns out Taylor Swift doesn't own her back catalogue, which is an amazing, incredible thing, isn't it, if you think about it? And what Kobalt is doing is really trying to empower artists to be the drivers of their own career. But just for the benefit of the audience, Avid, to explain to us what Kobalt is.
Sure. So thank you for having me here. Lovely to see you again. I'd like to think of Kobalt as a music rights technology company. And what we do, what that means is that we serve artists, songwriters, as well as labels and publishers on the B2B side by registering their songs and distributing their works around the world. We then collect the money from the music that they're playing, give it back to them, give them the data of where their music is being played, where their fans are, so that they can make professional business decisions as well as creative decisions. And also we provide them with creative services to break artists and songwriters globally. But the most important part of this is that we are a service company and we don't take rights away from our artists. So when you come and sign with Kobalt or our record label arm, AWAL, as an artist, you don't get locked in. You keep your rights and you partner with us. So we are not the owner of these artists. Unlike the traditional music system, we are their partner. And that's why we've become the most trusted brand for creators in the industry. And we have artists ranging from Paul McCartney to The Weeknd to Macklemore to Childish Gambino who have their publishing rights with us. On the recording side, we have Lauv, we have Rex Orange County, Freya Ridings, Bruno Major, and many more. And our founder, Willard, who really set up Kobalt to fight this opacity and inefficiency of the music industry, always jokes and is quite serious about the fact that he gets hugs from artists as opposed to get sued by them.
Right.
Because of exactly what you've seen with Taylor Swift, which is we are their partners. They keep their rights, they make more money, and they thrive. It's
been an amazing journey, actually, isn't it? Because it started in 2001, so it's quite a long time ago, but it really took off with this concept of music streaming. And after the music industry was almost decimated by Napster, musicians weren't decimated necessarily, but the music industry was. Streaming came along, and the ability to track where those streams were being played, how many times, send the revenues, the publishing rights revenues back to the artist. It was Kobalt's incredible innovation, wasn't it? But let me ask you this question, is that we're living in a world where the major labels have all of this sway, but what happens when, in a few years hence, the only big publishing rights holder is Kobalt? That's only one. So aren't you effectively replacing one set of tyrants with only one?
No. So if we are in a world where there's only one Kobalt, which the industry is vast enough and the needs are diverse enough where they will be more than just one publisher or label. But in a world where everyone has a model similar to Kobalt, is actually a much better world. It's not one tyrant being replaced by another. It's actually a tyrant being replaced by a partner. Our incentives are fully aligned with the artists. We want them to make more revenue because we take a cut from the revenue they make. That's all we do. And we flip the economics completely, where we give the lion's share of the profits back to the artists, and we just take a small fee on top. And so in that world where you are partner, whether there's one or whether there's many, it's a much better world.
So, but what's so interesting also is you've, if Apple or Spotify or YouTube wants to launch some kind of new service, they have to basically give you the sign-off, don't they?
Correct.
That gives you enormous power.
Correct. It's quite incredible to think that, you think of Apple, market cap, almost $1 trillion company, and they need to have Kobalt signature in order to launch their music business globally. And that's because we represent the rights of so many incredible artists, and they have to agree to the terms before they can launch this music worldwide. Now, that being said, we are partners with Apple. Apple is, and Spotify, and all of these DSPs want to promote these artists and distribute them, and so do we. And so it's a very collaborative relationship.
You're all on the same team, roughly.
Exactly.
Right, but some of the stats behind this business are pretty amazing. I gather there's something like 12 billion transactions per one hit song. What does that actually mean?
Yes. So the way to think about it, just to give a bit of context, about 10 years ago, we would go into a record shop and buy a CD, and that would be a transaction. And there would be roughly 4 billion transactions in over 70 territories. You fast forward to today, and you have trillions of microtransactions in over 200 territories. So this is an explosion of data. And these microtransactions, what are they? So you take a hit song, and it's going to be played billions of times, billions of streams on YouTube, billions of streams on Spotify, billions of streams on Apple, and on the other DSPs. You then will have millions of spins on the radio, you'll have TV ads, you'll have music being played millions of times in pubs and other venues in over 200 territories. So as you add up these numbers, you get close to 12 billion, 13, 14, 15 billion. Now, that's for one rights holder. Generally, a song has multiple rights holders. It'll have it'll have the artist, the performer, it'll also have the songwriters, and there's usually 2 at least, if not more, songwriters. So then multiply that number by 3. You're now up to 36 billion transactions. And those need to be tracked today in order to understand where that music's being played. And each time it's played, money goes back to the rights holder, in our case, the artist, in the old version of it, to the majors or the labels. And to track all of that properly, you need a technology platform. You can't do it without a technology platform. And that's why Kobalt was built with that in mind. And that's, as a result, we pay much faster, we pay more to our artists, and that's why we are their #1 partner.
Well, it's been pretty successful so far, but there are a couple of bumps on the road. Last year, you had a tax loss of about $42 million, which was nearly 30% increase. And so apparently Kobalt made this sort of decision to be more, make strategic investments. And it's also got this, is it a label called AWAL?
Yes.
So you have your own label as well. Mm-hmm. Not content with running the entire publishing world, you also have a label called AWAL, which also operates differently. But it seems to me like that Kobalt, if Kobalt becomes this infrastructure underlying the music industry, AWAL might be the next iteration to some extent. Why? Tell us more about AWAL and why it's considered so interesting at this point.
Sure. So AWAL is our version of a record label in this ever-transforming music industry. So again, to put context, today an artist is born with a phone in his or her hand, a social media account, and has access to his or her audience immediately, even before they've released music. And so whereas you and I had the radio before, where we discovered music through radio, and the major gatekeepers who would gatekeep the radio and what was on it, now you go on YouTube, on Spotify, on any social media, and you'll discover music very easily, and you'll talk to the artist directly. And so the power has shifted to the artist. The artist doesn't need the label in the traditional way. they certainly don't want to be owned by a label anymore. They want a partner to help them navigate some of the complexities that we just talked about. And AWAL is the answer to that. It's the answer to, we're your partner, we don't take your rights away. We will help you understand where your audience is. If you look at Spotify data, Spotify has shown that 80% of their British artists actually have the majority of their streams outside of the UK. And so it's really important to understand that data so you can tell your artists, where are your fans? Where should you be touring? How can we help you do that effectively? And we empower these artists with these tools, and we empower them, again, by giving them the lion's share of the income. And so what we're seeing now, and Willard recently was tweeting about this, is that for the first time in a long time, artists on AWAL are making twice as much through streaming as they're making from touring, which is a massive shift.
Right.
So there's a redistribution of income from the top now into the artist world, and especially into the middle tier as well.
So these, I mean, if AWAL's a label in its own right, doesn't that compete with the other labels?
Sure. So AWAL competes with other labels. If you are with AWAL, you're not with another major label. We also, though, have a B2B business.
Does that not give you a kind of inordinate advantage? Not only do you have the data from all of the publishing rights, you've also got the data from the streaming.
Yes.
Doesn't that give you a bit of an outsized advantage against other labels?
It's a fantastic advantage for the artists, correct. So we have this multi-rights platform that enables us to...
Don't the other labels get annoyed?
The other labels also have, the majors will have a publishing arm and also a recordings arm. They're not as cohesive as we are.
Yes.
They're often very siloed, and that's another aspect of Kobalt that's different. But the music industry, because of Kobalt, is transforming in the ways that they operate.
I mean, where do you see this? If you fast forward, say, when do you think the sea change will happen because of these new business models being applied to the industry? Do you think that the sea change that will really flip completely towards the artists in, 5 years, 10 years?
Listen,
Taylor Swift's 17th album?
I think it's already happening. For new artists, so artists that weren't signed to a major label and are thinking about how they're going to release their songs now, it's already flipped. They're joining AWAL, they're joining models that are slightly changing.
From day one.
From day one.
Right.
Lauv, who's done over 2 billion streams, is with AWAL. The vast majority of that income goes to him. Bruno Major is another fantastic artist, and he was dropped by his major. That's a devastating experience for an artist. Now, it's an incredible independent success story. He's done over 250 million streams. He's toured with Sam Smith. His manager uses the AWAL app to look at sort of the geodata to understand where he should tour. He's got 12 sold-out tours in the US. That's an incredible success story, not only emotionally for an artist, because he owns his rights, he is empowered, but also from a financial perspective. And to put some numbers, reasonable assumption is you earn roughly $4.50 for 1,000 streams. So an artist that does 250 million streams would make over $1 million. And with AWAL, that artist makes up to 80% of that income, him or herself. Unheard of, unseen before.
Yeah.
Artist makes 1 billion streams, we're talking about close to over $4 million. These are significant sums of money that are now completely accessible to artists.
Feels like you ought to be earning more than $4 million for 1 billion streams, surely.
Well, that's the economics of streaming.
But that's just the one time you listen to the song, is it?
It's the one time you listen to the song.
When you listen to it on a repeat, as I do frequently with some songs, then they're making more money out of me, which is great, thank God. Now, Berlin is a hotbed of blockchain and cryptocurrency. Imogen Heap is a famous British music artist who's invented her own platform called Mycelia, which is about tokenizing music and allowing musicians to be paid in tokens. And also the smart contracts effectively taking care of things like publishing rights and what have you with music platforms. It's very early days. I'm sure there are people out there who say it's not really ready for prime time yet. But how do you see that world gradually becoming part of the mainstream music industry? Or do you think that actually it won't ever get there, that Kobalt is it?
No, listen, we would love to see more simplicity into the industry. This industry, as you know, is really complex because of the variety of rights. The rights differ by territories. The rules around those rights differ by territories. And there's a lot of logic and exceptions to the rules that come into play. And so if we can find a way where we can cut out more intermediaries, where we can simplify through blockchain, we are all for it. And we would be one of the first to start adopting a technology that we believe would enable us to do that. It is right now too early. It's not there yet. Will it one day? I hope so. Will it take care of the entire sort of rights flow? Perhaps not. Can there be specific use cases of it? Certainly. And it would be fantastic to see that.
But it does sound like it's pretty early days, really, for that kind of technology to be involved more heavily.
Yes.
The business is fundraising at the moment, I gather. I think that's
Correct.
been made public. Mm-hmm. And you've raised almost roughly $200 million, going into a Series D raise now, I think, at this point. Is this on your way to an IPO? An exit of some description?
Well, it's on our way to building really the next generation music company out there. And whether an IPO makes more sense to fulfill our mission or whether it's something else, another form of exit, we'll see. It's not an aim per se. The aim, that mission is transparency, efficiency, fairness to the music industry and being the #1 partner to creators.
I mean, if a company like Apple or Spotify came along and said, right, we'll take it over, thank you very much, how much does it cost? Would that cause sort of a nuclear weapon to go off in the industry?
Well, you have to think about what that means for the artists, because right now we're a neutral player. We work with all of them.
Yes, exactly.
And that benefits our artists tremendously, and that's the power of Kobalt.
So your artists would be against you being bought by one of the big platforms?
So if it doesn't benefit our artists, we would be against it.
And what do you think they would say?
I think the artists would say, I don't know, you have to ask them.
Okay. I think they probably would prefer you to stay neutral.
I agree.
Right. So IPO seems like the obvious answer.
Potentially.
Potentially. We shall see in the future.
Single-minded Mike.
We shall see in the future. You seem to be quite... Now, you're an interesting person, actually, because I've known you for a few years, and you've been an entrepreneur, you've been a venture capitalist at Google, at GV. Used to call it Google Ventures, now it's GV. And you've been at Excel, you've been an entrepreneur, you did a startup called Boutica. I never used to be able to say it properly, Boutica, which was about, and interestingly, you liked empowering designers.
Correct.
With this platform, allowing designers, jewelry designers and designers of luxury items to get empowered, and now you're kind of doing it with Kobalt, aren't you? Are you into the music industry yourself? You're rattling off all these names. Do you like
I
the
love
music industry?
Listen,
Been into it yourself?
Music is something that I think no matter where you are, you listen to and memories come, changes your mood. It's something that thankfully we have access really easily to, and that has such emotional impact on people. And it does for me. We play music at home all the time. My children sort of sing and dance constantly. My husband is a massive music lover. And so it's been a blessing to be part of a company that is in music and that does so much good for musicians.
Yeah. It seems to be part of it. You seem to prefer being an entrepreneur or in the startup as opposed to the investing. Is that correct?
Yes.
You were a venture capitalist. I mean, what were the aspects of venture capital that you weren't so keen on yourself?
I'd say it's slightly different. I really missed when I was in VC building. I missed two things, really. Being part of a team with a mission and a vision and driving towards it against thick and thin, which I find exhilarating and rewarding. And then the building part, the actually creating something concrete that, and you're doing that and you're having impact with it. You don't really build when you're a VC. You don't really, it's not necessarily a massive team profession. And so I missed those components a lot.
And you're an interesting person. You're a part of the Iranian diaspora, aren't you, from
Yes.
many years ago? And your cousin is currently the CEO of Uber, I
Yes.
gather.
Yes.
Is there a sort of, do you guys keep in touch or
Yes.
about your various, adventures in tech?
Yes, Dara is someone that I look up to very much. He is kind enough with his time with me and sort of advises me on various things with regards to my career. He's someone with a very good head on his shoulders, a very even-keeled person and with a lot of foresight. So someone that I like to turn to brainstorm ideas and challenges and seek his advice.
Certainly seems to have stabilized Uber to some extent, it would appear, in recent years. Do you think that, there's a lot of debate at the moment about immigration and we have populist forces going on in democratic institutions. What do you think the response should be from the technology industry to those kinds of voices?
To which kinds of voices?
The populist talk about immigration and that kind of thing.
Listen, I think every individual will have their own point of view, and I think we should be free enough to express these point of views and also live by them. So, from a technology company standpoint, or any company standpoint, we look at our workforce. They're generally extremely diverse. We thrive on immigrants and the success of immigrants, and I think that speaks for itself. And so making sure that we talk about it and we show what a diverse culture, whether it's a gender diverse culture or an ethnicity diverse culture, brings to a company and the success of a company, and as a result, to the success of an economy, I think we should be outspoken about it. And a lot of technology CEOs and executives are very outspoken about it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's unfortunately going to be continuing a continuing issue, I guess, over the next few years to come. What at the moment is on your repeat playlist? We've got some questions coming in on Slido. What are you into on music?
So my playlist right now is driven by my 3-year-old mostly.
Right.
Unfortunately, I have unfortunately I have Baby Shark on it, which is a bit of a nightmare. But she also loves Ariana Grande, so I have a lot of Ariana Grande on my playlist.
Yeah. Okay.
And Despacito is her favorite song after Baby Shark. So those are the ones that I keep on playing at home.
Fantastic. And is you're obviously I think you're a new mum again
yes.
most recently. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Have you found it? Do you think that technology companies are set up well to allow women to work post maternity leave, etc.?
Listen, I think maternity leave, and any kind of leave, by the way, that is more than 3 months, I'm not sure anyone has found a solution as to how to deal with it. Because there's 2 ways, in my view, at least in my experience, that you can do it. Either you switch off, whether you're away because you're with your children or you've had an accident or something, a health issue, and you come back after 3 months, 6 months, a year to a world that's changed, relationships have formed, others have been broken, new projects have happened, and you're in the dark. And unless there's a proper process to rehabilitate you into the company, and accountability, somebody, I believe, that needs to be your buddy and be accountable for making sure that you're caught up, it's really, really tough. And I haven't seen that part of having that process well done yet anywhere. The second option is you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out while you're away, and that's an extremely frustrating experience for everyone. Person who's on leave, as well as the people in the company. Yeah. You don't feel that you're out anymore when you're back in, but it's a frustrating experience. So I think it's tough. I think it's tough on both ends, and we need to start making more effort in thinking about how do we make this work better, because you get a lot more goodwill if you do that, and you get a lot more productivity.
Well, I know that you've been a big advocate of women in the technology industry, and I'm sure that people will be interested in you taking that conversation forward to improve the lot of women in the industry. But for now, thank you so much, Avid Larizadeh from Kobalt Music.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.